I spent 9 months watching commentating as every playable character on a fresh WWF Smackdown for PS1 fought each other to see who was the best. 630 matches later, I can reveal that the unfortunate winner was Bubba Ray Dudley. But how did the main man from Dudleyville win? And where did your favourite from the twilight years of the WWF finish in this tournament? Well, stick around as I will overanalyze this completely pointless exercise that took the amount of time it takes someone to grow an entire human being. But just before I show you who finished where, let's explain the rules. Every single superstar in the game will fight each other, meaning every single competitor will have 35 matches. The rules for each match will follow New Japan Pro Wrestling standard G1 rules. That being 2 points to win, 0 for a lose, and 1 point for a double countout or a 30-minute time limit draw, which, spoilers, we thankfully got nowhere near. I did leave KOs and run-ins on as they were the generic sayings for the game, and I thought we'll leave them on for a bit of quirkiness, I guess. There were a few matches early on where I played with the sayings a little bit, which you could say none avoids this whole experiment, but I am not doing this again, so these are the results, take it or leave it. In case of 2 competitors having the same points, there will be a head-to-head tiebreaker, meaning if one guy beat the other, he will be ranked above them. And in events where every superstar shares the same win-loss record against each other, I'll just declaim the position a tie. Alright, now that's out of the way, we can look at where every single person finished, starting with the very bottom, Shane McMahon. Yes, he takes the prize for the worst in show. He had a lot of things going against him, including his father running him and causing him to lose. Twice. But at least he got one of the most spectacular finishes of the whole tournament, a glorious Stardust press that put out Hardcore Holly. 35 was Debra, the heart of the tournament. Starting with an astonishing 3-match win streak putting a joint top, she then proceeded to lose for 23 weeks straight, over double anyone else's longest winless run, before ending the tournament with 4 wins out of her last 9 to avoid bottom with a week to spare. At the bottom of an 8 wins trio on tiebreakers is Test. I'd say the most disappointing performer in this whole tournament. Starting 2-0, this giant of a man could never really put a run together after that, and was pretty much in freefall starting from week 3. At least he's Vince's favourite son. I guess we can give him a medal for that, I suppose. Next up is Paul Bearer, winning on the final night to not only avoid gaining Shane title of worst in class, but leapfrogging a couple of names to finish a respectable 33rd. Got a little help from his dark and mysterious friend on occasions, but also getting clean wins in 7-minute long matches means he has earned his position to dodge the very bottom of the pack. 32 is Tori, got enough dubs early on to avoid a scrap at the bottom, but 11 loss streak in the back half of the tournament made it look like she was in much more trouble finishing there than she actually was. A rather unexpected tournament for sure, but a KO victory against Stone Cold and a true fighting spirit moment against Taker where she kicked out literally every move out of the sun over a 1-minute period was probably one of the biggest highlights of the whole competition. 31 is the boss, well, former boss I guess, Vinnie Mac. His stunner was a weapon to be feared as 9 out of his 10 wins came by KOs as a result of them. And his other one win, you say? An arm wrench takedown against the Big Show, of course. What else could it be? 30 is D'Lo Brown. One half of the worst match of all time, pitting both Debra and D'Lo's 11-match winless runs against each other. He came out victorious after that, so we went from winning 1 out of his first 13 to winning 9 out of his last 12 to finish on a double-digit amount of wins. A disappointing one for our number 29 Jeff Hardy, a favourite of many, but his 4-1 start fell victim to a Vinnie Mac stunner and he never really recovered. His personal highlight was ending his worst run of the whole tournament. After losing 9 on the bounce, he then scored his biggest win of the tournament, ousting Billy Gunn, who was himself on a 9-match win streak. And how did he acquire this, you say? With the very move he got his first win, also gave him his final win, a spinning elbow. Vintage and poetic. 3 wins ahead of Jeff and 1 of 5 men to finish on 28 points is Hardcore Holly. Whilst his head-to-head with his peers was poor and his finisher felt like only had a 50% chance of actually putting anyone away, he was part of some classic moments in this tournament, including the longest match of the whole thing and probably my favourite bout out of the whole 630, his fight with Debra where she survived 2 Falcon Arrows to take the dub. An instant classic. Speaking of which, first of our 3 joint 25th place competitors is Christian. An interesting tale of redemption as he went from week 1 attacking his pseudo brother Edge and being the very last superstar to register a win, starting with a 0-6 record, to being the only man to beat all top 3 competitors by the end bell. He also recorded the longest time in ring out of anyone, just shy of 3 hours, and rather appropriately earning him the crown of the tournament's workhorse. One of my favourites of all time, is very glad to see him recover and be such an entertaining part of this whole competition. Brood member number 2 is Gangrel. Same record as Christian, and similarly started very badly with a 0-5 record. He was also quite high in ring time as well, 5th. I guess the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree here. Not the most spectacular tournament for the Vampire Warrior, but a memorable shock win against Taker means he takes something away from this experience. And the final member of the 25th position trio, and yes, you guessed it, the final member of the Brood, Ken Shamrock. Much like his peers, started quite poorly, recorded his 3rd win in week 13, but ended the contest with the 3rd most submission victories out of anyone, and the only person to tap out, the eventual winner, Bubba Ray Dudley. The king of the 28 pointers, but the lowest member of DX is the Road Dogg. A lot of help from DX helped to get his minuscule amount of wins on the board. He probably could have got a lot more if he didn't showboat in between every single leg drop and jab. Matt Hardy ended up being the superior brother, and it didn't look like it was going to end that way at the start. Jeff was already 2 wins ahead of his brother 3 weeks in. But Matt not only won their head-to-head pretty early on, but ended with 4 more wins than the charismatic Enigma. Also on 25 wins was Val Venis. It conquered Matt during their head-to-head. I kept the URP Championship title on this man the whole competition because honestly it seemed way too appropriate and I couldn't bring myself to put it on the line. 21st on a respectable 17 wins was Chyna, grabbing more wins than the other 2 women in this competition combined and had an impressive amount of KOs to go with. Chyna outclasses the Road Dogg and just misses out on the top half of the table. What could have been story for Edge as he started off with a staggering 9-1 record and ended with a negative win to loss ratio by the time the marathon had finished. Also, all of his first 6 matches ended in a jackknife cover. Very weird. Just missing out on the top half was Devon Dudley, the less successful brother by far, but was crucial in Bubba's run of terror, including both Dudleys helping each other earn 4 points from 2 countout wins apiece. Whilst Bubba was easy to predict, Devon was far from. Devon could go toe-to-toe and beat seemingly anyone, but also lost to a gut kick. Truly one of the most unpredictable combatants we had in the whole field. And now the top half. First up is the master of the roll-up, X-Pac, gaining 8 wins off his roll-up game. Pretty sure the most common running combination this whole tournament was Mr. Ass aiding Pac. Move aside, Road Dogg, as X-Pac is now my best friend. Al Snow was 17th. Godfather creeps into 16th. Between him losing despite clearly being in the ropes against Jericho, and Miz messing up his match twice in 2 different weeks, it seemed things frequently went awry when Godfather hit the ring. It's almost like there's something in the air. Steve Blackman finishes in 15th, which intriguingly is a whole 10 places above Ken Shamrock. Both men have a similar aura and I expected them to be quite close, and if anything Ken Shamrock would get the better of the 2, but this was a pleasant surprise. Blackman finishes with a joint fall from Alpins and dust for kneecaps as he threw an uncountable amount of knee strikes to heads in order to get his victories. And time for another big underperformer now as the legendary Stone Cold Steve Austin finishes joint 12th and outside the top 10 despite finishing top in the KO chart. Starting with only 1 win out of his first 6, the damage was done immediately and he was playing catch up the whole time and never quite climbed up to the leaders. Secondly, in our 12th place trio was Chris Jericho. The opposite of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Y2G started with a 7-1 record before falling down the pecking order later on. Also, unlike Steve, Jericho had the widest spread of offense. He was the only competitor to have more than 2 wins in the KO, submissions and pin charts. The real mixed martial artist. And who completes this legendary trio for 12th place with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Chris Jericho? Why, none other than the legend himself, the Big Boss Man. Our glass cannon, Boss Man, was in the ring for the least, roughly 1 hour and 5 minutes less than the longest Christian, meaning he won fast or lost faster. Every single match he won with his Boss Man slam, albeit 2 of them without a finish, so kinda cheating, but he was a 1-move wonder as well. Basically, if you didn't hit that move in 4 minutes, you won. 5 people had 46 points, and who's at the bottom of that pile, you ask? Well, it's the Big Show! His finisher, the Showstopper, had a ridiculous success in KO rate, but Big Show really struggled to beat the names around him, despite winning 8 in a row, and despite how many times he climbed up to the top rope, which was surprisingly often. Next we have an inseparable trio, claiming 8th place each. First off, The Rock. Again, one of the biggest names in the world at this point, but barely makes it into the top 10. Too many losses to the likes of Matt Hardy, Hardcore Holly, and losing to some Ken Shamrock clubs to the back. Embarrassing for The Rock, but to be fair, I think I would have stayed down. Whilst The Rock at least got a nice start with 4 wins off the bat, Triple H lost his first 2 to Stone Cold and The Undertaker. Hard bout for sure, but you gotta beat the best to be the best, Mr. King of Kings. Also, to show how inconsistent he was this whole tournament, Triple H was the only person who managed to beat first place and lose to last. And also, if we're keeping track, Vince sided with Shane in their bout, meaning Triple H is Vince's 3rd favourite son. And last of our 8th place trio is Mark Henry, the biggest choke artist of the whole tournament. Despite winning 10 in a row twice, he was 20-2 at one point, meaning his last 13 matches he went 3 wins, 10 losses. I guess there wasn't plenty left in the tank after all, but to be fair, he would have burnt a lot of fuel, being in the ring the 4th longest amount of time. King of the 46-pointer tiebreaker, arises Kane, and arise he did late in this tournament, winning his last 9, including a final night main event bout to crown Bubba Ray Dudley the champion. Whilst Triple H is hanging at 8th place, he is not the ace of DX, as Mr. Ass gets a surprising 6th place. Lurking in the mid-table and in X-Pac's matches for most of the tournament, he showed the table late on by winning 9 matches in a row and remaining a possible winner until 3 weeks were remaining. Top 5 now, and 5th, Mankind. With 8 more submission victories than anyone else in the tournament, and totaling 40% of all total tap-out victories, the Mandible Claw was a deadly weapon, which more than assisted Mankind's title ambition. 4th is The Undertaker, one of the few names I thought could possibly win who actually ended up being a contender. It's hard to say what Taker was missing. He had the most pinfalls out of anyone in the competition, so maybe he was just missing the ability to knock people out? I don't know, the two-stone looks pretty deadly to me. I don't know why I wouldn't knock anyone out. The Undertaker actually became the first man to beat eventual champion Bubba Ray Dudley, week 12, making him the breaker of the streak, the 1 in 11-1. That alone makes it look like I rigged this whole thing, but I swear I didn't. And now the top 3. All these 3 were contenders until the very last night, to the point where it was possible we could have had a playoff triple threat match. It was that close. But we avoided that partially because Farouk was always the bridesmaid and never the bride. Despite being a contender all the way through, Farouk never ended a single week top. An early loss to 2nd place meaning he was playing catch up the whole time, and whilst he kept up the pace, never took the lead. But who is this man who set Farouk back so early? Well, of course, the only person whose name who hasn't popped up yet, if you've been keeping count, is Bradshaw. He suffered a very similar fate, losing to Bubba Ray Dudley extremely early in the tournament, meaning he had to fight hard to remain relevant until the backstage of the tournament, including being top of the final night before losing to Kane in the final match of the tournament. And yes, Bubba Ray Dudley, our champion, our King of Kings, God's finest gift to this sport. He ended on the same amount of points as Bradshaw, with that win on week 8, handing the title to Bubba 7 months later. Now, to truly understand how it all played out at the top of the table, I've got one of those little racing bar charts, and we can see how it kind of played out. So, off we start, and you'll see people like Chyna and Debra, even Jeff Hardy up there rather early, but they'll soon drop out. The Rock keeping up pace with Bubba early, but he soon drops back. You'll see the likes of The Godfather, Chris Jericho, Edge, who finished 20th, all putting a charge early, but you'll see them filter out before it's too long. Mark Henry breaks away from the pack, but some people are keeping up, but it won't be for long as the fall of Jericho begins. Farouk, Mark Henry and Bubba make a dominant trio at the top. Bradshaw Jericho still involved Jericho before he begins to drop back. Now Farouk is losing the pace. Mark Henry will take the lead for now. Amazing considering how far he falls, but he does lead for a few weeks before Bubba Ray Dudley will soon take that lead back, and here he goes. Bradshaw, Farouk, inseparable backstage and both in this competition it seems. As you'll see, Al Snow right at the bottom there in the top mount, finishes 17th, pretty respectable. Bradshaw pulls away from Farouk. Farouk losing ground, but a week where Bubba Ray Dudley loses enables a catch-up, but only for a week, as Farouk and Bradshaw cannot capitalize on that situation until very late on. Bradshaw levels with Bubba, takes a lead extremely late on, and then on the final night loses, handing Bubba Ray Dudley the title. Now, why did Bubba Ray Dudley win? There's a few reasons for that. First of which is run-ins. Now, they're way more important than I thought it was. As you can see, 156 to 99 wins. That's a big difference in between the person who received the first run-in. I didn't include matches where there were 2 run-ins. This is only matches where there's 1 run-in. And you can see over 60% chance to 38% chance roughly. There's a huge difference. And so yeah, first off, have someone run in for you. Very helpful. So what else leads to win, I hear you ask? Well, one thing is stats. Now, the stats system is it's not what you used to in these wrestling games. There's 4 by 3 categories here, all with a value between 1 and 5. Skill, attack, and defense. Now, I would be lying if I told you I knew exactly what all this meant, because I don't. It's mostly guesswork, stuff that I've read on forums. I can tell you for a fact that skill allows you to use better moves, and I could go through all the movesets. I didn't. I just went through the finishers. Now, competitors that had high level in both power and speed, you'll see that they average more points than the people that got lower, as the little bars implement. Ignore the red. The red is Mankind's only person with a roughneck finish. There's not much there to do there. In technique, you see it goes down through the level. I'm gonna blame this on lack of data. You could say it's biased, you could say I'm trying to make it fix my agenda. I don't know. But you had like 1 level 4 and 5 level 5s, and some of the level 5s are like top rope finishers, which they didn't hit often. So I say have a higher level skill level, so you can acquire better moves, ideally in power, because the top 4 all had high level 4 or 5 in power as a finish, and then had all access to strong power moves in every part of their moveset. So have high level power moves seems to be the most important. Now, is that because they have the best moves, or because they build finishers quick? Because watching the matches, as I watched all 630, watching all the matches, it seemed they gained momentum quicker. Now, this could be because they have a high attack stat. It could be their type of moves. I'm not sure, but the pattern seems to be high attack stat. That seems to be where to go. Now, apparently defensive stats are potentially more important than offensive stats. I've read online that apparently if you have a high power defense and like speed defense, because they're the most common moves, apparently this is more important than having access to high level moves. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this, but it seems that the stats to invest in, from my research, is power and have a high defense in power and speed. Now, what else helps you win? Now, Bubba didn't have this. This is mostly an attribute of the lower ranked competitors, but there were 4 competitors you might have noticed earlier that had their highest amount of wins through roll-ups. It seems to me that roll-ups are very important to wins. Now, I don't know if this stops you from beating a dead horse. The AI actually goes for a pin instead of hitting 500 other moves and then loses. Or if it's because they have a higher chance of pinning someone else. The schoolboy, the backslide, the jackknife cover, we saw a lot of that. Not so much the darkness pin, that seemed to, if anything, have the adverse effect. But those 3 moves seem to end more matches, maybe, than any other move. And it seems like the ultimate combination is have high stats, especially in power, have a friend to run in on you, and potentially have a few roll-ups up your sleeve. That seems to be the ultimate combination into winning this competition. And that is the end of the video and the end of the Smackdown G1. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for the people who watched it live. We now know the answer to who the best Smackdown character is, and why I'll probably never play as them ever. Take care, thanks for watching. Peace out everybody. Bye.